Okay, this one's called Stealing. I actually do want to preface this one by saying that it is supposed to be funny. So, or at least a little bit humorous. There's supposed to be an element of humor. So, keep that in mind while you're reading. Go ahead and pause, read through it one time, and then when you're ready, come back. So, when we talk about stealing, obviously there's like a kind of a power dynamic here. And I would think about like why you're stealing and kind of what is the purpose for stealing. Is it something about like, for need or for want? Right? And what's the kind of purpose of stealing and what kind of person steals? So thinking about the thief and sort of like what role does the thief play, right? So the most unusual thing I ever stole, I think that feels to me like very conversational, which is kind of interesting. Has a very conversational tone to it. And the snowman is 100% not the answer I was expecting. It's kind of funny. Was a weird thing, definitely a weird thing to steal a snowman. And so we did it at midnight. So again, there's like a cover of darkness thing kind of happening here. So that's interesting. He looked magnificent, tall, white, mute beneath the winter wind or moon. Sorry. That imagery is kind of cool. And kind of creates this sense of the like snowman as a powerful figure. In some ways, it feels that way to me anyway. I wanted him. A mate with a mind as cold as the slice of ice. So that like kind of consonance is kind of cool within my own brain. So I have to remember that she's British. So this is not an American poet. So mate here just means friend, right? And so like he's looking for a friend. So maybe there's an element here of like, him being lonely and with a mind as cold as the slice of ice within my own brain. So they see themselves as someone tough and maybe even emotionless, that his brain is like a slice of ice, right? So this is like a tough guy or a tough person. I don't know if that's actually a guy, but it's a tough person. They sort of see themselves as someone who is rough. And I started with the head. So that makes sense. Logical, the head of the snowman, right? So I guess you just steal a snowman. And then we have a little bit of a shift. Better off dead than giving in. Not taking what you want. So here this is definitely about rebellion and about like authority. That the speaker is not just talking about a snowman, that the snowman is something bigger, right? He weighed a ton. His torso, which I know makes sense for like the middle ball of the snowman, right? This is the torso, but it just feels like such a human word though. I don't know, it just feels kind of disturbing. And he was frozen stiff, hugged to my chest, a fierce chill piercing my gut. So I don't know, there sort of feels like an edge of violence in the sort of description here with like frozen stiff torso piercing my gut. That language just feels a little bit dark. Part of the thrill, so here we're sort of looking at motivation, was knowing that children would cry in the morning. Wow. Life's tough. So again, that kind of like short, punchy diction is, or syntax is kind of interesting. Sometimes I steal things I don't need. So there's definitely here about like the kind of thrill or the power of it. I joyride cars to nowhere, break into houses just to have a look. So definitely it's about like what you do to others rather like than it being about the things or about the need. It's more about like the power in this situation. Again, though, this whole thing feels like a little bit like a tangent. So the whole thing definitely feels kind of conversational. I'm a mucky ghost, leave a mess, maybe pinch a camera. So again, pinch is here is slang. I watched my gloved hand twisting the doorknob, a stranger's bedroom. Mirrors, I saw like this. So there's like an intimacy here and kind of going into someone's bedroom. And again, all of this just feels like a power trip. I think the word ghost too is really interesting here because we're sort of like leaving the like realm of sort of seeing myself as human and instead sort of seeing myself as this like figure that's not real and doesn't have any substance. So that's kind of interesting too. So then we're going to shift again. So we've shifted here like away from the actual stealing of the snowman. Like we started with the head and then we shift away for 2 stanzas. We're going to shift back to the actual theft of the snowman. It took some time. So that I would also say probably took some effort. Reassembled in the yard, he didn't look the same. So he lost that like magnificence that he had in the first stanza. I took a run and booted him. So I kicked him. Again. So combined with this idea of the breath ripping out, this definitely speaks of like agitation, that the speaker, the thief, is really upset, right? Because they are standing, it's after midnight, guys. And he started this at midnight, right? We know that they started this at midnight up here at the top. So if it's took some time, we're talking about maybe 1 or 2 or 3 a.m. And this person is just sort of standing in a yard, panting heavily, kicking this snowman that they stole and tried to reassemble. It does seem daft. It does seem crazy. But at the time, it seemed logical. It seemed reasonable. And it was like a heavily emotional moment for the speaker, right? That this felt sincere at the time of the actual theft, right? And I was standing alone. So this goes back to, again, that idea of like the loneliness of the speaker among lumps of snow, sick of the world. I actually think this comment is so telling, right? That maybe the speaker is being just like a little bit more vulnerable than they actually intended to be. And then we shift tones really quickly back to like a sense of indifference. This is the tough guy persona, right? The tough persona, like this person doesn't care and you can't hurt me and you can't make me feel things. Boredom. I'm mostly so bored I could eat myself. I stole a guitar and thought I might learn to play. I nicked a bust of Shakespeare and flogged it, but the snowman was the strangest. This one too is like kind of an odd thing. You don't understand a word I'm saying. So there is sort of this, like, I think, pleasure that they are not understandable. Like, they're kind of like, you don't get me. You don't understand who I am. And so themes, I would fold in, like, humor. I would fold in rebellion. I would talk about autonomy, authority and power, identity. I would also probably fold in here that there's like an element here of like someone who's an outcast, someone who doesn't really seem to fit in. So if we go back up to the top and we look at our color coding, I want to start with structural just because it seems, again, this is like a free verse poem. It does have the sort of structure of a conversation, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. So there's like a consistency across all the standards. There's no rhyme. There is, some enjambment, but not a lot of enjambment. I definitely think it's supposed to be like it's a conversation. It starts and ends with a question. Language observations. I definitely think we have the slang piece. So that to me speaks to this idea that the speaker is supposed to be young. Sorry, I keep forgetting to pull this back into view. So here, the slice of ice. I wanted a mate. The frozen stiff is kind of, but like, life's tough feels kind of dramatic. Joyriding, mucky ghost, pinch a camera. Booted him is very slangy. Daft. So there is like sort of a language piece here that I think is kind of worth talking about. The textual features, I think you could talk about imagery. Again, I do think you could talk about a little bit about persona if you really wanted to. You could talk about like sound devices, because we have here slice of ice. Here we have imagery. So imagery and sound devices. The syntax here, I think you could probably talk about in terms of that like language being sort of short, the kind of tone down here. I like this so that like sort of sense of almost dialogue. Here we have repetition, and again a little bit more imagery. So then here there's a little bit of parallelism. So lots of kind of interesting things happening in this poem in terms of textual features. And then the point of view is just first person, from the perspective of the person doing the stealing. I ever saw, I don't need, and then you. So it's a first person in a conversation. And that's everything.